The 27th Caribbean Squash Championship held at the Ligony Club in Kingston concluded on Saturday, and by all accounts it was a resounding success. Guyana won the overall team title, tallying 64 points, with runners-up Cayman Islands on 56 points, while hosts Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago amassed 45 points. Large crowds were entertained by high-quality squash, and a television audience, Sportsmax presented unprecedented live regional coverage, even witnessed a historic moment as Jamaican Chris Binnie won his 10th men's singles title and Guyana's Ashley Khalil her first. Now, here to speak with us about the overall success of the championship is the Caribbean Era Squash Association president and coach of the Guyana team, Ramon Chanasu. Ramon, welcome to the Sportsmax Zone. Let me first of all say congrats to Guyana on their success at the Caribbean Seniors.
Thanks very much, and appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and it follows, of course, your success you had earlier this summer with the Casa Juniors as well. So things are going well for the Guyanese on the squash courts.
Yes, we're having an unbelievable year for squash, on the courts, that is. Even before that, we had a huge success at the Pan American Squash Championships, where Nicolette Fernandez won the first gold medal for Guyana in that event. And then we followed it up with the junior, retaining the junior overall, and then here in Jamaica. So yes, it's been a good summer.
Yeah. Before we finish this interview, we can talk a little about the Caribbean Masters players, 3 of them winning titles in Poland over the past weekend, but we'll get to that in a moment. Nicolette Fernandez, of course, leading that group. But the championship was, first of all, heralding the return of an event that we hadn't seen because of the COVID-19 pandemic for over 2 years. How enthusiastic were the players, first of all, in getting themselves back into competitive action?
The energy level was unbelievable. We didn't get as many countries as we normally do come into the championship, but the people who were there, the energy that was at the tournament was off the charts. And we saw the same thing in Guyana for the junior championships. We had such a good energy. Everyone was happy to be back among, the Caribbean squash community is a tight-knit community, and everybody was happy to be back, not only competing at the highest level in the Caribbean, but also being around their fellow Caribbean folk. So it was unbelievable.
Yeah, and of course we mentioned at the top about the live coverage on Sportsmax. Unprecedented. I'd never in my 38 years of covering sport in the Caribbean seen a Caribbean squash tournament live on television on a daily basis. How much of an impact would that have had?
Well, for the players, I know it was really awesome for them, and I believe that for the community as a whole, we'll tell after this, because I think being broadcast to a wider audience is just going to help the game now. So I'm looking forward for us to get quite a nice springboard from this particular venture by Sportsmax. And we look forward to partnering with Sportsmax in the future, doing more of these.
Thanks. And Coach, based on what you would have seen not only from Guyana, but from the rest of the Caribbean, how pleased are you with the development and, of course, the traction that the sport has been getting?
Oh, I'm very excited. Again, the exposure from this should really help. But I'm just looking around, and given that squash is not a very COVID-friendly sport, because it's very hard to social distance on a squash court, but it's something that the sport needed, just to get it rejuvenated. And some of the athletes that we have in junior programs we lost over the COVID period because they went out, they started playing other sports like soccer and stuff, that football, cricket and stuff that were more outdoor sports. And because most of our facilities were open later than other sports, so we're trying to play catch up, and hopefully this will help us.
And I think what was special about this Caribbean Squash Championship is we got to see the very best on display. And by saying the very best, Chris Binnie from Jamaica, he created history by winning his 10th title. What did you make of his performance, looking on? And of course, any interactions you would have had with Chris before?
Well, Chris has been a consummate professional all through his 10 years, very gracious winner. He continues to just bring the quality every year. There's always a few guys every year who think they can dethrone him, but he just brings that professionalism, and he's just still a notch above everyone at this point. And there's a few youngsters on the rise who are hoping to try to get to his level, but until they can prove it on court, Chris is the man.
Yeah, I know that the Guyanese youth program is pretty strong. I know Shamara Wiltshire had competed at the World Juniors a couple of weeks before this. Is he someone who in the future could probably test Chris, because Chris is past 30 now?
Well, if there's anything, age is no longer, it's just a number these days, because you look at some of the professional athletes, they're taking care of their bodies and playing a lot longer. So, that 30 is the new 20. Come on. So, but I would say Shamari's one of them. Young Cumberbatch, he's only 20. And, he's not that old. So he's going to, I think, what happened with this championship is that some of the doubles overlapped with the singles final. And, not to make excuses for Kamal, but he didn't have the freshest pair of legs going into that final. But I expect him and Shamari Wiltshire from Guyana definitely to improve as they go forward and to get up to Chris's level at some point. Yeah. Whether they'd be as successful as Chris, well, time will only tell.
Yeah, we saw in the women's singles playoffs, all four semi-finalists were from Guyana. Ashley Khalil emerging champion in the end over Taylor Fernandes. Looking lopsided as far as regional competition is concerned. Is that something good or bad, or should we just praise the Guyanese for being so strong?
I don't think. I think it's just a byproduct of our junior development, and so 10 years ago we had a strong female junior program in Guyana, which, as a result, for all those years that we won overall titles at the junior level.
That goes 12 years in a row. There were 12 years in a row, I think. 12
years in a row. Yeah. It was built around a strong female group. And this group now have aged up. And now they're doing it at the senior level. So, and I think the same thing, I looked at Jamaica this year, and they have a few young female athletes. And I think if they stick to it, they may see the result down the road, just as we're seeing the same. We've now benefited from that. But again, it's about sticking to it, right? One of our biggest issues is having athletes just fall away after juniors, yes. And how do we keep them in the sport? That's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Quickly, Ramon, before we leave, as the man presiding over Caribbean squash at the moment, you would have to be happy as well with the World Masters in Poland. Nicolette Fernandes, over 35 champion. Karen Meekins from Barbados, over 50 champion. And John McCrory from the Cayman Islands, he was the over 70 age group champion. And all of them were top seeds going into their divisions.
Yes. Quite miraculous, I must say. It just, Saturday, as I said in my closing speech, what a day for Caribbean squash. I think the rest of the world has to take notice that we're producing, we might be small, but we're producing some really good talent, young and old out of this region. So, very excited, very excited.
Ramon, pleasure to have you here on the Sportsmax Zone, and it was a pleasure as well watching you in those interviews during our live coverage of the Caribbean Squash Seniors at the Ligonier Club in New Kingston, Jamaica. We'll be in touch, and all the best for squash, and hopefully that the IOC looks at squash and puts them on the Olympic stage at some point.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
There's where we leave it. We go to a break. When we come back, Mariah will have the next set of zone updates.